Let's go. Blasting outer
I
space.
think Hunter might have been the problem the whole time.
Thanks a lot, Hunter. Fuck.
He's like my dad. He's got a gigantic magnet.
Is that pizza on the roof?
Fuck.
Eat the pizza. Don't throw it on the roof.
All right, we are rolling.
Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. This is a special edition Misfit Podcast, Monday, November 6th at misfitathletics.com. Phase 2 begins. It's a very exciting time every time we turn over into a new phase. And, you know, we've got a 9-week phase coming for you guys, something that is sort of new to this year. And in this podcast, we basically go down through what's in the phase. What can you expect? Sort of maybe some instructions and how-to on to get into it, where are we at in the season, all kinds of good stuff there. So it's a big peek behind the curtain in terms of how we program, how we want you guys to execute on it, all that good stuff. But before we go full nerd mode, we got to talk some shit. We got to talk some shit with the Goon Squad. What's up,
I
dude?
asked a question. Is there a reason why you look so short in the podcast? I know you're trying to frame what's behind you, but like you're in the bottom third of your screen. I feel like I got Gabe on the podcast again. Where like
my
I'm seeing like
grandpa FaceTiming for the first time.
So I had it pointed down, and
the camera, the screen. The screen is the camera.
my hydrate was out of frame. Let me see, what happens if I go up?
Ooh, let's go. Blast off, kid.
I don't think the table doesn't go lower. Is that better?
Yeah, you look a little taller. You just looked really short
right.
before.
Well, I mean, we're doing Goon Squad life chat, and if we're talking about my size, I am down 10
gross.
pounds.
Family podcast.
This is a fucking kid show guy. Jesus
Just hit my
Christ.
head. It's too many props back there.
Prop City.
I have reached my goal weight. I am down 10 pounds.
135.
I have defeated Dad Bod for the first time. I think we'll meet again.
190?
Bro, put up the before and after
No,
pictures on the
no,
screen.
I was at like
Put a side by side.
204, something like that, and now
Pop that
I'm at
tarp off.
194. My goal was 195.
Congratulations.
Almost
Thank you
there.
very much. For anyone wondering, I guess we are going to go nerd mode. Body weight times 12 in calories. Protein 1.2 times body weight in grams.
Put that map on the
that's-
screen, Ted.
And
Just trying to follow along.
fat somewhere between 20 and 30%, and then backfill with carbs. I weighed and measured every single breakfast and lunch, like
You said body weight times 12?
body weight times 12. That is the, so I was like 2,400-ish in that neighborhood. With
Can
my,
you say that again in a way that it starts and ends so I can post it on Instagram?
yeah. Yeah.
Or just a way that explains what exactly you're talking about.
yeah.
Frame, do a
So
nice little frame.
sure. Trying to lose my 10 pounds of dad bod that I accumulated over the summer, and starting out with calories in, calories out. That's how we're gonna figure out how we can lose a little bit of weight. So I did 12 times my body weight. That gets me my calories. So I was in the like 2,400 range when it comes to calories. Number one priority with macros was protein. When I'm in maintenance, I do 1 gram per pound, but when I'm trying to lose weight, I do 1.2 because protein has a bit of a thermogenic effect. So it basically takes up a part of the pie chart. Pretty easy with online calculators to figure out like where's my, my protein is at this many grams, so that's however many calories, and then you can sort of work backwards from there. I use the little sliders, and MyFitnessPal makes it super easy. Fat, tried to keep in the 20 to 30% range for hormonal balance. When you're on a cut, hormonal balance isn't awesome. That's just kind of how it is. And then backfill with carbs. So that gets me to my macro numbers. I will say that I was very diligent with my protein numbers, especially trying to get in the neighborhood of like 200 grams within the first couple of meals of the day. That was super helpful for me, and then that allowed me to feel like I was being a naughty boy at night, and having something that wasn't, the maybe the exact balance of what I had left in carbs and fat, but it usually worked itself out pretty well. And I just felt like I was eating a meal that I wanted to eat. So it's like super regimented on breakfast and lunch. Those were all, did meal prep on Sundays and weighed and measured all that stuff out.
What was your
and then,
protein?
what's that?
What was your go-to protein? You stick
Slim
with
Jims.
leaner stuff or?
Yeah, I mean, like the days where I did 93.7 ground beef twice, like for both breakfast and lunch, it was, yeah,
I
it
don't
actually
like the
should,
sound of that.
honestly should be less.
That should be illegal.
Sawdust.
Well, I mean, so I don't, one of the things that could be easier for other people, like I didn't really spread my fat out that well throughout the day. I kind of kept it so I could add cheese at the end of the day. But when you do the like 93.7 for what I would call my first two meals, you definitely taking up more calories than when you do chicken. So breakfast and lunch was almost always, one of them was 93.7 grass-fed and the other one was chicken breast, which you can do pretty well in an air fryer. If you cook it any other way, then you're going to get real sick of it. Although calorie deficit, you fucking wolf down your meals. That's one plus of going in and doing the weighing and measuring. Like, even if you're like, damn, I didn't season this correctly.
You use boneless, skinless chicken breast?
Yeah.
If
It's
you
just
have the
easy for me to,
patience-
what's that?
I was just gonna say, if you have the patience to remove like the bone, you can even do it after you cook it. But you can put a bone in, skin on chicken breast. You cook that like 90% of the way on the skin side to get it crispy, and it kind of insulates it from getting dry. Flip that thing over and then finish it in the oven, and you'll get the moistest chicken.
I don't
shit you
think
ever had.
people would be stoked with the amount of work for meal prep and the calorie difference between those two things. So like you're talking about like maybe someone with a certain metabolism or a certain
I
calories
was
out
speaking
number.
exclusively to make chicken breast not suck.
Taste.
Yeah.
Taste.
Yeah. I do recommend.
I mean, the extra work, there's no, I mean, if you buy, like, if you want to remove the skin afterward, which I think would be blasphemy because that's the best part, but if you wanted to remove it, all you would have to do is, like, cut it off the bone
Sure.
to get rid
Yeah.
of the bone portion.
Yeah.
But I was talking purely to, like, because you were like, the only way you can cook it is in the air fryer. But
Yeah, the only way that I found that I'll like actually retain some moisture and be able to, because we're talking about like whatever 5 pounds of ground beef, 3 to 6 pounds of chicken, cooking my rice, cooking my pasta, do all that on Sunday, and
Yeah.
then put it into containers. So there's a bit of a like that regimented vibe that becomes helpful with doing it within this way. So, and then obviously on the other side, calories out is a big thing. So just paying attention to when you have expectations of a fluctuation in body weight and you're not tracking your steps and trying to do some form of exercise every day, you're just going to notice a difference. Like you're supposed to do an average weight over 7 days because obviously like if you haven't taken a dump or you have a bunch of, you haven't taken
Thirsty.
a piss yet or, that sort of thing, that will change your body weight. So, got way easier as I went, like way easier. I think there's something to the like
Habit forming.
yeah, very much habit forming. And then sure, I mean, even Ted, I don't know how good your sleep is right now. You might be on the same kind of schedule as me and Sherp, but, it can be really challenging to do this when you have the like dad mode swings and sleep and the blood sugar stuff. When you get outside of that and just do the same sort of things every day, I didn't find that to be an issue at night anymore. It was more like kicking old habits than it was that like running the show for me. So tracking my steps, I mean, I tried to do the like 10-minute walk after I eat and one longer one. 10,000 steps can be either super easy because you're sprinting around the house or challenging on certain days. But anyways, just paying attention to both sides of that equation, I think is super helpful.
That's pretty wild about what you just said, dude. Drew, to like kind of like boil this down for anyone who's like, wow, that was really long, but I'm not sure I understand all of that. Like I was listening to Peter Attia's book, Outlive, and he talks about the like RDA for protein. Do you guys know what that is? you ever heard what the RDA like? And that's the
Oh,
I think
it's
they're
fucking like, isn't it
Registered
like,
Dietitian
it's
Association.
like 25 to 40 grams. It's something absurdly low.
So it is take your body weight in
Or
pounds,
like
grams per day.
25% by 0.25.
So take your body weight divided by 2.2 to get your weight in kilograms. Multiply that by 0.8. So for shits and giggles, I did this for Noelle. That would be 47 grams of protein a day, which equates to, I don't know, somewhere around a fucking 140 calories, something ridiculously small. It's more than that, but it's not
They
much.
don't want you to be able to repair muscle tissue. They want you to end up in a nursing home.
100%, but it's just fucking wild. So like take that number and then multiply it what you just said, like where I do a body weight for her, so maybe somewhere around 115. That is like a 70-gram discrepancy.
Your wife's weight out there in the public eye.
I'm saying her goal weight. Goal weight. She's not gonna fucking listen, and if she does, I'd be so proud of her. But she's not fucking listening. I can't get her to listen to anything that's not like a very, very sciencey book like Peter Attia's book. I'm working on it.
Yesterday, Noelle was in class with Sherb, and after when Sherb was trying to collect scores, she was like, he was like, Noelle, what'd you do? And she was just like, I didn't pay attention to your instructions. And I was like, good, excellent.
She didn't realize our
Finish
workout
it
was
off
a
with
rest.
bitch.
Yeah, actually, at home. So yeah, pretty wild to see the discrepancy between that two. I mean, 70 grams difference. What is that made up in fat and carbohydrates? And for most people, that's those two things jammed together, which is, the least healthy combination for anyone trying to maintain a healthy weight. So
You'd normally
pretty
go
wild.
0.8, 1, or 1.2 if we're talking about pounds.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
pounds.
Yep, not kilograms.
Not kilograms.
Not kilograms.
0.8 in kilos for me is like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's like 62-ish, 64 grams of protein.
I think you can survive a fucking hostage situation with that much protein.
Jesus Christ.
You also kind of
What does
learn
that mean? Sure.
You also learn a little bit about maybe what you do in certain moments of not weighing and measuring, because you're supposed to typically you're looking at, if you're in a calorie deficit and it's somewhere to the effect of 500-ish, a lot of people will lose like a pound a week. So it should have taken me 8 to 10 weeks to do it, but it took me like 4 or 5. And it's just like, there probably were no days where I ate anywhere near 2,500 calories and turned I was way above. And then you just think about what happens on specific nights, like a weekend night.
Is it a bad sign if you hate to think about what you eat? Like it scares you to think about the way that you eat?
No, I just think it's it's easier that way, right?
God damn it.
Yeah. Yeah. Out of
like-
sight, out of mind.
Like I put on,
You run from it?
I put on 10 pounds easy, very easy. It's a, how old am I? 36, 37? I don't fucking know. How old I am.
38, I think.
I'm 38?
I think so.
No, 37, 6 to 3. Yeah, 37. You'll be 38 in January.
Fuck.
6 to 3.
Speaking of that, happy birthday, Matthew.
Yeah, happy birthday, sure.
Damn.
Did you do anything cool?
Fuck. Yeah, I coached CrossFit. It was awesome.
Did you
Yeah, I
have
did
more than
some-
2,400 calories? Did you do anything cool?
I did have some Monty's pizza last night. It was excellent. And
Did you order
well,
it at 9 a.m.?
No, surprisingly enough, on a Monday, you only have to order 6 hours ahead instead of 12. So I had pepperoni pizza and some.
Is that literally when you ordered? You had to order it at noon?
No, I think
ish?
Noelle ordered. No, she ordered like 2 hours early instead of the normal 4 or 5 hours. It's bonkers right now. It's pretty wild. So yeah, no, it's pepperoni pizza, and then Noelle, our school had some 88 donuts left over, so she brought me home leftover donuts, and my son sang happy birthday, which was awesome.
You ate
So
88 donuts?
the brand's 88. I had
Oh.
a few. We'll leave it at a few. Less than 2,400
Is
calories.
it like the
worth of
crazy
donuts.
88?
Yeah, the accused
The
were
time you
here.
ate the box of Butterfingers?
Yeah, at least a box, if not 2. Fuck. Yeah, no, I mean, people were like, oh, how are you celebrating your birthday? I'm like, I'm here coaching. What do you think I'm doing for my birthday?
We are
But-
together currently.
But did get to watch the Patriots kick ass on Sunday, which was great. So I'll take that one day early as a nice birthday gift. So thanks, Josh Allen, for sucking, and for Mac Jones for playing quarterback for once. So that was nice.
Yeah, we got some shitty team momentum on this podcast right now. Steelers
sure do.
went and beat the Rams 4-2. I don't know how that's possible. The best team in the division is like 1-5, and then all the teams that suck are 4-2, I think.
It's pretty wild. It's been a weird season.
Yes.
Been fun to watch, though. Been fun to watch.
Yeah. And we're back. Technology is the coolest. You know what we are good at, though? Writing down fitness in Google Sheets and then having people put it on Fitter and MisfitAthletics.com. Get you to the CrossFit Games. All right, phase 2. Monday, November 6th, MisfitAthletics.com. You can get signed up for a 2-week free trial, and you will be able to follow this program if you are looking for instructions to do better in the Open, quarterfinals, semifinals, the CrossFit Games, also the return of the Masters and Teens program. We essentially consolidated Masters and Hatchet, very similar programs. And we did that for the community effect of people following the same program, communicating about the same program, especially with the equipment modifications and scaling. We felt that that was the right thing to do. We got some feedback from some of our loyal Misfit Masters, and they wanted some of their nuance back. What we are asking in return for bringing that back is to stay within that Hatchet community anyways, and let people know, hey, your workout had 12 muscle ups and mine had 9 or whatever it is, but the community aspect is still something that's super important to us, and we think that working out on an island, doing kind of your own thing, removes some of the magic of CrossFit, whether it's competitive or at the affiliate level. But you will see a Masters/Teens program, and there are instructions within that based on Open, quarterfinals, semifinals, CrossFit Games, just like our other programs. The first thing that I wanted to address is, honestly, it's for new subscribers, but it's also kind of a frequently asked question, and either something that might be confusing or stressful for people who follow the program. So we have something called the variable programming system. And what that means is we tell you on a daily basis, here are your mandatory pieces based on your goals. And then here is a myriad of options to choose from to be able to personalize your program. Now, it takes extra work for the subscriber to do. But when I walk out of my office and I see 50, 60, 70 CrossFit Games jerseys, I know that we are doing the right thing, that when we do this, and it takes a special kind of person to follow Misfit Athletics and to really buy into the community. So it will make you fitter to go in and have those extra pieces that are personalized to you, that are chosen based on your strengths and weaknesses. So again, if you're going to the site, you're going to see your instructions and then choices. What we need to have people stay away from is the overwhelming nature of, you're an open athlete and I'm just asking you to do a lift and a conditioning and call it, or add an accessory, and you see those 2 or 3 other pieces in there. Don't get wrapped up in the volume monster, right? We've been saying for over a decade, you doing a lot of volume just means you have a lot of free time. No one's impressed with your free time. Congratulations. We want intensity. We want intention. We want warm up and cool down and all of this stuff. That you either have heard us rant about for a very long time, or you will if you're new to the program. So it's the type of thing where, again, it is a little bit of extra work, but it's a way for us to do what we call remote coaching the masses, being able to connect the dots on what makes it magical to sign up for remote coaching with Misfit Athletics, but might not be financially feasible for you. One really good example is on Hatchet. We have a choose your own adventure day. So you're going to do lift 1. You're potentially going to do the skill or the accessory, but there are 3 conditioning pieces in there, and you're either going to choose 1 or 2 of those based on your goals, and the instructions are going to be in there for you every single day. So, I mean, I don't know if you guys have specific advice for those days, but you should be able to look at it from the standpoint of, go ahead, Hunter.
No, I was just it's more of a overarching comment on the Masters thing, the Hatchet choose your own adventure thing, the variable training system thing. Like, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is how much effort you, the listener, are willing to put in to your progress and to your fitness. There's nothing like exceptionally special, although I'll fight anybody who says otherwise that our programming is superior. But at the end of the day, it's not so much about what is written in Fitter, what's written in the sheet or on the website or whatever, as it is how the user is executing. We could get the same person who does every single training piece on Misfit Athletics, but doesn't really put all that much thought, or and maybe is attacked by the volume monster and is doing more than they need to, and that person's not going to make nearly as much progress as the person who is actually paying attention, following the instructions, acknowledging kind of the nuance of, well, I am a quarterfinal level athlete, this is the volume that is appropriate for me, this is based on how much time I have, I'm going to put forth the necessary energy, intensity, effort, mental focus to do the few things that I'm doing really well, and that person will do better than the one who's just like, wow, I have a whole buffet of options to choose from, and I'm just going to keep going until I get tired. Like, that's not it's following the program incorrectly is what it comes down to.
Intentionality requires two things: maturity and mindfulness. You need to know why you're doing what you are doing, and you need to make sure you make a mature choice each day to not exceed your capacity, thinking about like how great you feel on a Monday and then how terrible you feel on Friday and Saturday. Like, you have to be able to be balanced every single week, and you have to really ask yourself, is there actually anything to gain from here other than just going hard and comparing with my buddies? Or is this a glaring weakness for me, and do I need to spend my time doing that? I think that's what separated Misfit Athletics from every other program out there that exists, to my knowledge, is that you have the opportunity to look at what you need as an athlete and essentially self-remote coach via your own programming. And then if you're not sure about something, have a community that's tied on Discord that you can then ask people questions based on like, hey, I thought I needed to do this. Turns out my splits are as in the top 10% of everybody. That's a good note for next time. I don't need to hit the short rowing intervals, but maybe I did terrible on the long rowing intervals, and that's where I need to spend my time. So each day you get to go into the programming and pick what works best for you, and then constantly check and recheck and update your expectations of where you currently are and where you want to go, and use that information to create that magical program that most athletes seek with remote coaching. They think there's some sort of, you pay Misfit Athletics X amount of dollars and all of a sudden you get a brand new program that's completely different from the masses. And the answer is, that's not how that works. Though it works because you try really hard, and that you and the remote coach work hard together to figure out what your biggest needs are. And if you don't have a remote coach, you have the opportunity to use the community to help you remote coach yourself, which I think is a huge leverage point for Misfit Athletics as opposed to other programs where it's like, oh, it's really cool that my favorite CrossFit Games athlete also does this programming, but I have no fucking way to know if I'm on the right path for what I need to be doing. It's cool they do it, but does that mean anything for me? And the answer for a lot of athletes is no.
Yeah, I
Hi,
think
Castle.
that Castle, get it, bro. I think that one of our strongest points when it comes to programming is being able to adjust to how the sport evolves and changes, but not overcorrect. I won't call any specific program out, but we see a lot of overcorrecting. Just based on short-term changes, short-term knowledge. And we always need to get ourselves back to variance being our guiding principle and put you through the paces. And that's something that we do really well and have an opportunity to do more than other companies because we give you options to choose from so that you can personalize what you need to do. So to explain a little bit about where we're at in the season, we have 3 9-week phases that start like a month or so after the games. And the programming itself is different depending on if you're a CrossFit Games semifinals athlete or open/quarterfinals, and that will be evident as we make our way through the podcast here. But some of the stuff lines up really well. And phase 1, if you followed it, we had a mandatory muscle endurance piece every single day. And I think it can be tough to go through that, to leave your ego at the door and choose that piece of the workout to really like get yourself in on. And one of the things that we say to sort of joke in competition season is you don't put a saddle on a bronco. We got like 2 or 3 saddles on you in phase 1 when it comes to muscle endurance pieces. We are overdoing it in a way to really get you to understand that we need you to get your movement capacity up first. Then we go into phase 2, which we're about to start here, and we have a gas tank stimulus mandatory piece every single day. Now, I want to cover what the difference is in this piece, in these types of pieces, in terms of us as programmers and you seeing it. So if you're new to the website, when you go in and see your program, you're going to see with every single piece feel and pacing. The feel is either going to be gas, cardio, or muscle endurance. The gas stimulus, we need to make sure that we are giving you a spicy meatball that you can go in and reach a little bit on. Now, it's not a gas tank piece if you just dial everything way back. Your pacing is slower. You try really hard to turn it into what we would call a merry-go-round, the cardio type pieces. So what we need from athletes is we have definitely given you the opportunity to make it hurt. But then you go in and you put that magnifying glass on one thing. So typically for me, if I'm trying to get an athlete's gas tank up, and I know that, probably pretty good at either muscle endurance or sort of the slow pacing type stuff, I'm going to say, I need you to go a little bit faster on the burpee box jump overs in this workout. And the rest of it, we're going to see what happens, but that's every round. Every time you get back to these, you need to be ready to push a little bit. I want you to go 100, 200, 300 calories per hour faster on the rower as you come back around, even though you know that that's probably not a good idea. We are pushing for threshold once a day with these gas tank workouts. But the onus is, we talk about the 50-50 agreement. We're going to meet you halfway. We need you to meet us at that halfway point and say, okay, I will go in and sort of dial this up a little bit. So we get your movements, in the place where you can do more of a certain thing without being more fatigued. Gas tank stimulus. We overreach on threshold work. And then in phase 3, there will be a mandatory cardio piece every day. And that's getting back to the sport. We're getting closer and closer and closer to getting back to the sport where it's like, get the best score possible. Now in cardio pieces, that's typically a bit more like, every round should be similar. But that's sort of where we're at in terms of stimulus. I don't know if you guys have any commentary on going through and doing this. The one thing I will say, to cut you off before you speak, is if you did not do phase 1, there are non-mandatory muscle endurance pieces sprinkled throughout. So again, you can still come in and see those, do those pieces, understand that if that part of your game is not where it's at, that you get to personalize the program and do that.
Yeah, I just think the onus is in the approach. Like you need to look at every single piece that you have that's identified as gas and say, are one of these 2 things or one of these 3 things or in this chipper, where are the biggest areas of weakness for me? Is it figuring out how to hold 15 burpee box jumps a minute in a Metcon that's 5 minutes long? Is it figuring out, can I hold 1500 of the rower if I have a set of 6 muscle ups after? Like learning that kind of information is a huge part of what I think goes into giving you the confidence you need during competitive season. So it's not just individual movements, it's combinations of movements, it's durations of workouts, it's the ordering of workouts, rep schemes and workouts. The more finite you can get with your details and how closely you pay attention, the more confidence you'll have when they throw you something that's arbitrary in the open, because they hand you the same combinations of movements and rep schemes and stimuli every single year. It's being able to identify past experiences, call upon how you perform there, and then, working towards closing the gap on the things that are lagging the most are how you have the confidence and the fitness you need come competitive season to make the step that you want to make moving forward.
Yeah, to compare it to phase 1, it's a similar idea, just more. So in phase 1, we're pushing the muscular endurance aspect. We're putting you in a specific scenario where you have to figure out how to handle a large set of, let's say, pull-ups, for example, as opposed to, repeatable sets of 10. Maybe there's a set of 30 where it's, hey, we're intentionally saying we're intentionally disrupting your ability to grip, there's bicep fatigue, whatever. We're trying to overreach from a localized muscular fatigue standpoint. With phase 2 and that more gas tank stimulus, we're doing the same thing, but basically to your lungs instead of local musculature, right? We're using, if instead of saying 50 pull-ups, maybe we say 50 wall balls, something that isn't necessarily limited by muscular capacity, but more so metabolic capacity. That's kind of where we're trending with phase 2. And like Drew said, asking you to overreach metabolically so that when the open comes around, when we come into, competitive season, when the cardio stimulus becomes the focus next phase, well, okay, I trained that gas tank sort of stimulus in phase 2. I know that I've rode at 1800 in this Metcon before, and I know that's a bad idea, but my capacity is increased to the point where, well, I can't row at 1800, but I can row at 1500. And, last year, maybe that number was a lot lower. The point is that we're giving the opportunity to overreach metabolically in this phase, whereas phase 1, it was a little bit more about overreaching, taxing very specific muscle groups.
Yeah, I think the one piece there that stood out to me is you took it from the standpoint of also you need to figure this out. And that might not be a physical limitation. You will hear us talk about athlete IQ a lot. I think we do one full episode a year, and we just did one very recently. I think all three are worth listening to, and athlete IQ is in the title of all three of those podcast-wise. So definitely something that you will want to look into, to chat with people on Discord about. If we get on that rant here, you will not find out anything about phase 2. Gears for monostructural workouts. So you go in and you are on Fitter and you see build ski, 8th gear, 6th gear, and 4th gear. That you need to go to Discord. Ted, can you tell me the directions on how to get there?
Yeah, so if you go into your Discord server or into the Misfit Athletics Discord server, under the chat section, there's a forum that says, I'm opening Discord right now.
Athlete IQ.
IQ corner. Yeah.
Athlete IQ corner. Just click on that and there'll be a list of feeds. I think the second one is the one that has the gears document in it.
So you download that document and you're essentially looking at a matrix of if the workout is 10 to 15 minute windows of work and the rest periods are between 30 and 60 seconds, I need to know what I can do on row, run, ski, biker, echo bike. The opposite end of that spectrum is all the way down. So that was 1st gear. 8th gear is 90 second to 2 minute windows with 4 minutes of rest. So very different workouts. When we find our 1st gear and our 8th gear, and you get the opportunity to do all of these things throughout a phase, that's when you can go in and just do a little bit of simple math, right? You're not going to nail it completely. You might be a little bit better aerobically or anaerobically. But if you know that it's, an 8:45 per mile pace on your 10 to 15 minute windows and a 7-minute mile pace, that you can then go in and divide that and figure out that it's about 15 seconds different per mile on each gear. This is from a remote coaching standpoint anyways, one of the most helpful ways to get athletes to understand how we're programming and why we're programming. I think that we've had in a few years, but there is a little bit of buy-in. You got to download it. You got to go check your old erg screens and, notes and scores and stuff like that and put those in. But they are super helpful. And I think can really go a long ways in upping your athlete IQ and doing the physical adaptation with the mental adaptation. Because if you're just guessing every single time, then that can be a bit of an issue there. The one thing that I think might get confused a little bit when it comes to programming in the competitive space is why we do monostructural, why we do skill work, why we do lifting and accessory. We just talked about going in and doing a workout completely differently than maybe some of you have ever done. Like I've talked to really high level athletes and they're like, no one's ever asked me to do anything other than game this and figure out what the best score is. And obviously you're not working individually as an athlete to get yourself better when you're doing that. So when we do this, we ask you to achieve a stimulus and go in. Some things might suffer, right? You might go in and you might lock in on something and you know that like this bike pace is a joke for me. Well, guess what? We're going to lift, we're going to do gymnastics, and we're going to do monostructural. And we're going to do those at a level with rep schemes that would be heavier or faster pacing or higher rep count when it comes to the skills. And that way we know we're well-rounded. We're going in and we are individually getting better at these things. We're performing the sport, but with different stimuli as we go throughout the year. And it really comes together very well as we make our way to phase 3 and the comp blocks and getting into the season. So you get an opportunity to really you can really overreach in single modality work. So that's your ability to go in and make sure that you are performing all 3 of these things at the highest level that you personally can. We remove the element of, muscle fatigue from a barbell, when it comes to doing your monostructural work. We remove the, breathing super heavy when you're going to do your gymnastics. So we're going to have the ability within the program to push those things, and you're going to have the options to push those things, whether you're an open athlete or you're trying to go to semifinals this year.
I think one of the biggest, sorry, sure, my turn. I think one of the biggest fallacies that especially I would say the mid-level CrossFitter has, beginners and elite athletes, I think beginners don't understand that going hard, going stupidly hard, is benefiting them tremendously, and elite CrossFit Games athletes in general know that going stupid hard is going to benefit them significantly. The difference is that the elite athlete knows what's about to happen, the beginner doesn't. But the athlete in the middle, which is a lot of folks, is the athlete who has gone through enough of the beginner's kind of feel of fuck, I did that workout wrong, I went out way too fast or whatever, and I paid for it for the next 10 minutes in that workout and it sucked. And then therefore whether it's out of fear or just like you said, Drew, somebody who just thinks that getting the best score in the workout is a representation of me being fit. That might be true, but it's only true in competition. The way that you get to that point, to begin with, is by going in and doing the monostructural work and overreaching to the point where you are pushing yourself beyond that kind of comfort zone. You're in that developmental kind of difficulty stage where you can actually make measurable progress. You can record, the gears thing that Drew is talking about is essentially just showing you that at this sort of duration of effort, this is how hard you should be going or you should expect to go. And you use that information to, well, if I skied at 1,000 calories per hour this time and that wasn't so bad, next time you ski at 1,100. It doesn't have to be overly complicated, but for the athlete who is in, again, kind of that mid-range competitor, maybe I'm trying to do better in quarterfinals, maybe I'm trying to sniff semifinals, and there's not a willingness to abandon the I just want to get the best score possible and actually train, you're missing a tremendous amount of fitness to be had when it comes to overreaching a little bit and making sure that you're pushing yourself out of that comfort zone, kind of using that, whether it's a beginner's mindset of I'm just going to go really hard and see what happens, or maybe a little bit more sophisticated of an approach to say okay, I know that this is too long to send, but it's also something that I need to go very, very hard in and to push myself outside of this comfort zone because it's going to make me fitter. It's going to allow me to get a better score when the time comes to game the workout as hard as possible, to get the best score, to get the fastest time, whatever it is. But in order to get to a point where you seek the fastest time, you have to know what your upper and lower limits are.
Score is like baseline information. What you learn from your score and how the piece went is the next level up there. And I think that's sort of what you're saying there. The mid-level athlete is that you can get too trapped in the weeds of just worrying about what your score is. It's good to know that you're in the right stratosphere or you've identified an area where you need to spend more time because your score pales in comparison to others. But it's really about learning kind of the bookends like you just talked about and what that allows you to do when score actually matters, which is for us, if you're fortunate, it's 4 times per year where you have a couple of events that allow you to score in a certain way to allow you to advance to further in the competition. But for most of us, it's about improving on the things that will allow us to score better the following season. That's very hard to stay focused upon because that is what actually moves the needle and allows you to perform your best.
How you get the score or the result is more important than the score itself, right? The journey is more important than the destination, so to speak. So we have athletes a lot of times who will either say at the affiliate, will go up and deliberately look at the whiteboard and be like, okay, so they got that score, they got this score, or they'll go into the notes section of our workout recording app and they'll see like, oh, this person actually showed me they did 11 and 5 on their pull-ups in round 1 and then 4, 4, 4, 4 in round 2. And athletes, they will then try to replicate that exact strategy. And if they won, they're like, yeah, I did it. I beat them. And it's like, you got the result, but you have no fucking idea how you got there. So the how is more important than like the end result. And like, if you can't answer those questions on your own, as far as like, well, how do I get the best score possible? How do I get, sub 10 minutes in this 5-round workout or whatever? And then adjusting and adapting your strategy based on your capabilities to get there is way more fucking useful than just like, that's the score I got to beat. I'm going to do everything I can. And if I sneak 1 second under that time, I've won.
Last but not least, we have, in terms of conditioning anyways, we have MF2 sessions. This is going to be your zone 2 work. This is a non-negotiable 1 time a week, and for most athletes that are trying to compete at a high level, a non-negotiable twice a week. My note next to it says, yay rowing. We try to convince you to ignore our suggestions for other machines if you're not a good rower and you are mostly focused on the open and quarterfinals. We don't have to say that this phase because we're asking you to do it anyways. Here's what I'll say about MF2 aside from it being a non-negotiable. Be obsessed with staying close to 170 minus your age for a heart rate, trending potentially up towards 180 minus your age, and fuck the pace. The pace is not relevant. I would honestly be way more concerned with someone's cardiac drift, their ability to like a really, if Sherb was in peak shape, he could go in and
what are you saying, bitch?
Sit on you just haven't been doing as much math recently.
Fucking around.
170 watts. If you asked him to hold that, his heart rate would stay exactly the same for an hour or longer. That is a sign of a very well aerobically functioning athlete. So if your heart rate is changing a ton during this session, you're either going too hard or you need to do more MF2 sessions because, again, you are struggling with that. Like, I'm the opposite. I'm gonna start at 171 minus my age, and if I stay at that same pace, I will end up at 179 minus my age. That's just how that is, but that's because I don't have the same sort of aerobic functioning.
And to give you some perspective on that, Drew, I actually just did a skiing math for the first time, and I don't fucking know how long, probably like 4 or 5 months. I did 45 minutes. The splits are broken down into 9-minute intervals here, but I started like 193 watts, which is a little too fast. But
take it easy, ego boy. Jesus.
Stand by. My heart rate was at 105 when I started because I didn't have time with the time I had available to really do a good warm up. So that part of that onus is on me trying to get my heart rate up into the zone early. But then I settled into about a 180, and that's a 187, 184, 184, and then a 179 for an average of like, I think it says 179 here by the end here. So, got myself back into a reasonable range, and looking at the heart rate graph, you don't see it tick up as I go. It just stays level the entire time, which is exactly what you're just kind of referencing.
Yep. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, that's been the biggest thing recently with my remote athletes has just been like, this, I didn't necessarily get it this week. And it's like, there's so many factors into why your wattage would be X, Y, or Z. I need you to spend that time at that heart rate. We need to be thoughtful about which machines we're using or if you're doing running, but just like it's a kind of a longer journey when it comes to this stuff. And, Caroline did 2 MAF runs a week for half of the year that she qualified for the CrossFit Games at Granite Games. She went from like running isn't even something that I like to do like in an affiliate class to second place behind Mal O'Brien in that run workout at the Granite Games. And so much of it was just those MF2 sessions. And I'm sure she'll tell you there were some 10, 11 minute miles in there. And that's weird for someone at that fitness level, but it makes a massive difference. So it's really just about removing your ego from the equation and doing what you got to do. We've got accessory work daily. I don't know. I've like lifted one butt cheek off my throne or my high horse when it comes to accessory work. There are instructions now so that I'm not asking you to do 6.5 hours a day of accessory work. Apparently that's not doable for everybody. I don't know what that's all about. But we are chasing strength, stability, and mobility here. And you probably have a pretty good idea of which of those things you need to work on the most. And they are built in there. And you might feel like you have it in your upper body, not your lower body or your midline. So we call out what we're asking for in each of these things. And if you're an open athlete and you get one every single day, even if it's we say something like 4 to 6 rounds, if it's the 4 rounds, you can only rest a minute based on your schedule. If you did that 5 days a week for an entire year, you would notice a difference in whichever category you were trying to improve on. I personally struggle with low back, knee, and elbow issues from my glory days, and I can tell you that doing these things makes a massive difference. And honestly, for me, it's like a quality of life thing too. It has absolutely nothing to do with performing in the sport itself. But you get really sick of being in pain, and these things can make a huge difference there. So that's my pitch for going in and doing the amount of accessory work that you're able to do. Deload weeks. You will notice weeks 3 through 7 on the website. There will be a template for you to create your own deload week or to do a fully built out deload week that we've done for you. And there's an article that explains why you would want to do one or the other. There are people that just love the choose your own adventure. And like, I want to choose if I'm going to deload and get my mind right. I want to do muscle ups, fuck handstand push-ups, that sort of thing. So the deload weeks are in there, and it is your choice based on how you're feeling to perform deload from week 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. Shouldn't be in week 1 or 2. Week 8 is already primer week. That's going to have a low volume in it anyways, and then week 9 is going to be retest week. I don't know if you guys have put any of your remote athletes through the deload, but I'm super happy with using essentially like putting someone, like having them stay in the gym and continue to build the habits of stretching and doing their zone 2 stuff and all of that. I know a lot of times people deload if they're like going on vacation or something. We keep the person in the gym so that their body feels better, but their mind stays sort of used to it. And then when Monday rolls around that following week, still have all of the habits built in of what they should be doing, but can get back to work.
I actually had an opportunity to do this with one of my athletes who deloaded in week 7, and obviously week 8 is primer week, and was like, is this the same week? And it's a chance for me to educate a little bit about the difference between the two. The deload week is primarily to go in, you just said a second ago, Drew, have the same habits, but maybe move at a pace that doesn't cause your heart rate to get up into the like 190s, 200 range. But instead, is more of like a almost zone 2-ish pace on some of these movements where you can kind of move deliberately and focus more on the quality of movement and essentially like how you can transition from thing to thing, keeping yourself at the same kind of even keel and making sure the volume gives you a chance for your body to actually heal so that you are ready come retest week. Whereas the primer week is, hey, you might be at a similar volume, but let's put the hammer down a little bit on this one thing each day to really let the dogs off the leash here and see how fast you can go. And hopefully that recharge from the prior week makes you feel, a little more hungry to go at that gear that you haven't been in 2 weeks. And that allows you to get a very good dose of intensity, but at a volume that isn't going to have you so beat up for retest week that you can't give that an honest effort.
I think it's just making sure you're thinking about the longevity of yourself over the course of the entire season. Lots of athletes will either avoid the deload week or take primer week as like, oh, I can still no, I feel fine. I feel fine. I'm going to execute all the pieces that are here, all the pieces that are provided, and do the accessory work. And again, what you have to consider is like the fact that we're training for the most part, assuming that you're following this to be competitive. You have a very specific amount of time where you want to be performing at peak, at the highest level. In order to get there, you need that at least once every 9 weeks, especially with the increased duration of the phases. Whereas we used to do once every, a phase that took 7 weeks. A 9 week chunk of time is a really long time to stay focused, to one, stay focused on all the same things, but two, to just remain operating at a high physical output and capacity. So injecting that 1 week where maybe you only do a lift and a Metcon or lift and bitch work and maybe add some low intensity skill work is super important. Just thinking about kind of future you. Even if you feel good at the time, what you want to do is make sure that you're not digging yourself a hole that accidentally, is still empty come February.
Yeah, we talk about overreaching both on the micro level and the macro level. And if that's indefinite, you're essentially sprinting off of a cliff. Different athletes have a different amount of runway for a bunch of different reasons. But if you're just, full Forrest Gump mode and you send yourself off of a cliff, that's not going to be helping anybody. So we need you to train at a level that you haven't pushed yourself to before. And eventually that's going to end up being an issue. And I won't spend too much time on this, but the article I think is super helpful in trying just helping you figure out where you would insert that. All right, so 9 week phase. Week 1 is test week. Week 9 is retest week. And now we're going to get into what is actually going to be tested. What is the bias for this phase? For MFT, we have heavy wall balls, everyone's favorite, and toes to bar. Those pop up on what we refer to as our murderer's row list. And those are things that we see stop athletes dead in their tracks. Hunter, I believe this is your creation when it comes to the test and the workouts and the skills. So if you want to do a sort of a quick explainer of how this works.
Sure. The test with respect to toes to bar specifically, so focusing a little bit more on that movement, essentially we kind of drop you into, so again, let's think back to phase 1. What happens when you get dropped into a workout that's a big chipper that has 100 toes to bar straight? Okay, that is a different strategy than in phase 2 when I'm asking for 6 rounds of 24 toes to bar. And that number of reps, the number of reps aren't as important as kind of the idea where we're saying like, hey, this is some of you could do this unbroken, most of you probably aren't going to. What is the appropriate strategy for me to break these things up in order to stay moving throughout this workout? And one of the biggest things I see as kind of a gap in athlete IQ is like, it's a little bit easier to stare at a monitor, a rower monitor, a bike, a ski monitor, whatever, and be able to see objective numbers in front of you. But when it comes to specific movements such as gymnastics or wall balls or whatever, and understanding what your capacity is as far as like how you should approach certain sets, or certain sets is really important. So part of the skill work where we kind of pull the toes to bar out of a conditioning piece and put them into skill is essentially giving you big sets where I'm asking you to predetermine how you're going to approach this. So just a really quick example. I hate reading off the screen because I don't know how many people actually can follow along, but week 2, the first week training toes to bar capacity is 8 rounds of 18 toes to bar with
Sounds
30
easy.
seconds of rest
Sounds
in
sustainable.
between sets. So 30 seconds of rest is like, well, I think a lot of you listeners right now could say, like, I can do 18 toes to bar unbroken. I could even do 36 toes to bar, maybe even 54, 3 by 18. I maybe could do that continuously. But in competition, in a workout, there's oftentimes the question of, well, is that the right decision for you? Is that smart to try to do this unbroken, knowing that I only have 30 seconds of rest before I need to hop back up and do more toes to bar? So instead of saying, hey, just get this done as quickly as possible, I'm asking you to consider how you should approach this in order to keep your sets consistent. So let's say 18 toes to bar, like I'm pretty confident that I could do that. I could do 9, and then I could do 5, and then I could do 4. And I could only take a couple of seconds of rest in between those sets. I'll rest for 30 seconds, and then I'm going to do 9, 5, and 4 again. And I'm going to keep doing that for all 8 of my rounds with the goal of getting an understanding of when a set of toes to bar, a set of pull-ups, a set of wall balls pops up in the open that is maybe goading me into trying to do this unbroken. I'm too smart for that. So I want you to I'm putting you in a scenario where you can make an educated decision on how you should approach these sets based on what your capacity is. For the wall balls, there's a little bit less structure there, mostly because they just pop up in the Metcon. So for MFT athletes, you're throwing the heavier wall ball. For hatchet athletes focusing maybe more on quarterfinals and semifinals, you're throwing to an 11 and 10 foot target so that we've seen that basically that's a standard that's been set by last year or the year before in those competitions. So just getting you comfortable with the potential to throw a normal wall ball to a higher target is kind of what we're after for this phase.
Yeah, and I mean the heavier wall ball, obviously we're making a jump all the way from 20 to 30 pounds, and the expectation of someone following the program to have your 24, 25 pound wall ball isn't really there, but we love to get ready for handstand push-ups, a slight deficit, to, swing a heavier kettlebell in skill work, to be able to come back and swing the lighter one for a little bit easier. So I think that high target, even if it doesn't have anything to do with how it's programmed, your ability to really reach when it comes to those and then get to go back to 10 feet in the open and in quarterfinals, you're going to notice a difference physically and mentally. All right, Sherb. Interval testing. We have the lovely muscle up sandbag carry and sandbag clean trio for MFT. Hatchet is going to focus more on just the muscle ups, and the test itself is going to smell a little bit more like a quarterfinals workout. It's going to make it, I think, easier both in terms of logistics and also getting you like a really good test of fitness.
Yeah, with the interval test, I had a few objectives to try to, sort of set the standard of what I think is the direction the programming is going and the sport as a whole. So, sort of some inspiration from prior regional / semifinal events. And, what's great about our sport is that it's ever evolving, and what people can do continues to exceed expectations, which further moves the goalpost further down the field. But in this test, you have essentially 2 giant sets of muscle ups for the average, for most CrossFitters. Maybe one set of 15 muscle ups is something that's very reasonable for them to be able to do. But can you do that on a second set of 15 muscle ups? And then once you finish the muscle ups, you have to figure out how to get a very heavy sandbag into a bear hug, carry it a very uncomfortable distance, and then with all of that metabolic fatigue, figure out how to move that sandbag steadily so you're not standing around. And with the beauty of interval work, there's always this giant rest, hanging at the end there to sort of give you that in like the insinuation that like this is go as hard as you can, thinking of like a final at a semifinal, or like that old regionals workout that was the 30 calorie bike, the 20 burpee box jump overs, and the 10 cleans at the end. 5 years ago, 150 for 10 reps was like mind blowing, and people were dying underneath that sandbag because of the hole they had dug. Essentially, I'm putting you in that same kind of desert island, telling you to figure out how to move that 200-pound bag, because that's the new standard. And to help you get better at this throughout the entire phase, we're going to work from very practical sets of muscle ups with a lot of volume, significantly more volume than the test. But the idea here is not only can you move well in each set, but can you be very deliberate with watching the clock in between your sets and try to keep those splits of rest relatively consistent. It doesn't pay you a lot of value to bite off, let's say it's 15 sets of 3, for you to do the first 5 sets of 3 super fast, and all of a sudden you start hanging out in the chalk bucket more and resting more. And yeah, your overall time might be competitive, but how valuable is it in any sort of competitive sport where you're racing to get a huge lead and then watch that huge lead disintegrate as you go, through the rest of the workout? So what I want athletes to do as they go through this phase is, obviously you have your test scores at either end, but in each week where you get an opportunity to do muscle ups, pay close attention to how much time you take in between sets, and use each week that's going to alternate between like muscle ups being in a workout and muscle ups being skill, to figure out, can you take the skill work from last week and use the rest periods that you had there, and sort of think about that as you go forward into the workout that follows the following week. And essentially there's like breadcrumbs on the trail of how do we go from maybe 1 set of 15 is very reasonable to, hey, I think I have the confidence to do 2 sets of 15 and I can do it with minimal rest, so that when this test comes back around in week 9, you're ready to hammer it.
Yeah, the one thing that I'll say about the kind of the nuance here with Hatchet and the age group is, don't be sad that you're missing out on the sandbag, because muscle up, shuttle run, heavy alternating dumbbell snatch is going to be special. You're going to get a very similar kind of stimulus there in terms of heart rate, in terms of your ability to, maintain your midline and your upper body with the dumbbell snatch. So, and really just the nuance between Hatchets as your open and quarterfinals athletes and the Masters is going to be muscle up volume itself. But very quarterfinals-esque test in terms of sort of the movements, and it's nice to have the 2-round version. So you've got your 12 shuttles jammed in there, and if you go slow, you're going to lose by quite a bit.
You need to figure out how to do those fast.
Yeah, you got to figure out how to do those fast. We had a really good affiliate workout the other day where I'm still not in running mode, so I was on the Echo bike and I was able to watch athletes doing the shuttles, and it was short enough but cardio-y that people had to run hard on the shuttles. And I can tell you that either you need a very, very high fitness level where you can just run hard the whole time, or athlete IQ wise, it's really hard to, I think you guys both did this workout. It's kind of hard to manage the, we don't really know what the pace is, right? We don't know exactly, there's sort of the maybe 3 or 4 gears that you have with a shuttle run, but hard to really feel kind of the difference unless you're staring up at the clock and doing math the whole time.
It was a workout where it the shuttle runs for the most part were where people made up, because it had dumbbell snatches and wall walks, and in sets where if you were racing for, say the top of the leaderboard, you were doing those things quickly and unbroken, and the difference was how fast you ran. But it was also one of those workouts where, and this happens in at all levels, like at the games. I remember it with the shuttle run and split jerk workout from the year, previous years with the what was it, shuttle to overhead, where the difference is 1 rep, is 1 split jerk, is 2 seconds on a shuttle run. And that was a kind of a workout where it was like, well, you might be running at about the same speed as your your peer, but about the same speed isn't the same as the same speed. And when you extrapolate that over 6 shuttle runs across 7 rounds, it's like all of a sudden you find where, how did that person beat me by 30 seconds? How did that person beat me by an entire minute? And when you break it down, where it's like, well, they literally turned around a little bit faster and gained a half a second on you each shuttle run. And when you add that up over the course of a lot of reps, like, it does make a big difference. It does shake out, and it does shake out on the leaderboard a bit. So it's, I don't remember where that initially started off, but it's just
the throwaway nature of them is just so But if you got 2 rounds, 5 minutes of rest, and you dog these, even if you do well in the muscle ups in the dumbbell snatch, it's not really gonna. It's not really gonna help you.
I think with the shuttle run in particular, a lot of it comes down to how it's programmed and what the other movements are, so that they're actually made to matter. Whereas last year in the Open, we learned that particular combination and rep scheme was not necessarily conducive to forcing fast shuttle running. For example, burpee pull-ups and shuttle runs, where we learned that you could walk about as fast as a lot of people ran.
Truth. Anything else on that, Sherb?
No. I mean, Hunter hit the nail on the head with the shuttle run component there. I mean, I'm thinking back to that workout. Hunter and I did that workout. He did it like 6:15. I did it at 9 a.m. And the difference in the scores at the end was a handful of seconds, which is literally like a quarter a second per shuttle run. So, what I would encourage an athlete to do, if that's something, a movement that you need to get better at, no, you don't need a weakness template, but you do need to spend some time before the event. Before you do that, spend time figuring out what is the most efficient way for you to pivot, not get dizzy turning the same direction every single time. Figuring out what the footwork here is. It's funny. We'll do it at the affiliate level where I'll be like, all right, guys, before this workout, we're going to do some dance moves here. We're going to figure out how to turn around efficiently and not kill all your momentum and, not go an extra 6 to 12 inches past the line every single time. That's unnecessary and adds distance to this workout because it matters a bunch. So, there's no detail that's too fine. And I would spend some time before the workout figuring out the best footwork for you that keeps you moving.
Yeah, the thing that comes to mind is I feel like this is almost the ultimate version of the heads-up display that we talk about. So we do a ton of monostructural work on machines that tell you what your pacing is. And if you have some athlete IQ and you have some context, you can normally make some pretty good decisions because that's there. That translates out to when you're running your 200s, 400s, 800s, mile repeats, whatever it is, and can you sort of moderate how you feel instead of staring at your watch the whole time? Can you do that? Because then that would, in theory, translate to, do I know if I'm in trouble in a Metcon, if I'm pushing hard enough, if I'm, somewhere in the middle? And the shuttle run itself, the athlete needs to be able to stay in their body and ask themselves how they're feeling. Like, I watch some people try to keep up in the competitor, the competitor extra class that we do. And if you just try to keep up with someone that can run way faster than you, the writing's going to be on the wall. You're going to be able to see it. Like 2-3 rounds in, it's like, that's not what your heart rate is supposed to be in a workout that's a bit of a merry-go-round. So I think this is one of those opportunities for athletes to ask themselves, while they're doing it, how do I feel? Because some people, like myself, will just say, it's 12 shuttle runs, easy peasy, hold my breath, sprint those, and then, either not be able to do the dumbbell snatch or think that the 5-minute rest is basically negligible at that point. All right. The next category we have here is lifting. Everyone's favorite, definitely my favorite. I used to spend probably what felt like to the listener like 6.5 hours going through every single lift and what that was going to look like. So I'll try to do a better job of just explaining how we program lifting, what opportunities you're going to get, and then you guys can either fill in the blanks or, sort of grill me on anything that I missed. So we pick one lift per phase to specifically increase your power output and/or 1 rep max. For MFT, that is your semifinals and CrossFit Games individual athletes. That's going to be the snatch. For Hatchet and for Masters and Teens, that is going to be the clean. We switched to doing the 1 rep max lift with the Olympic lifts back to, I believe this was last year, to the twice a week, and it made a really, really, really big difference. So your standard sets and reps. What I love about this year's nuance compared to last year is it's 9 weeks instead of 7, and we get you a bit more of a runway to dial in your technique and work at lower percentages before you get into the higher ones. From there, we have a GPP model, general physical preparedness. We're not going to be able to guess what they're going to program. Is it a 1 rep max? Is it high volume? Do you need to be able to move with speed? Do you need to be able to move with technique? We're not going to be able to guess what they're going to do for a specific lift itself. So we're going to have you run through a rotation that gets you ready for all of those things. Each phase, the GPP lifts have a bias. So it's just something that we're going to test a bias, and then it's probably going to pop up once more than the other categories. So you have, for MFT, GPP clean, back squat, push press, and deadlift. When it comes to the actual biases there, we are looking at volume on the push press. A lot of people can, push press or strict press, or, do a whatever giant deficit handstand push-up once. And then because we don't walk around on all fours, you don't really get a... Uh-oh. Did you guys lose Ted?
Bye, Ted.
Bye,
Still
Ted.
says recording.
Yeah, I'm going to keep going. So we have volume when it comes to the push press. We actually have volume when it comes to, or touch and go when it comes to the squat clean. So you're going to get to test your 5 rep max touch and go squat clean. Deadlift is going to be speed work, really important to learn how to pull a deadlift fast. And then we have technique work when it comes to the back squat. Such a foundational movement, needs skill transfer to the Olympic lifts. We need to take the time to dial that in. So that's what you're going to have for MFT. For hatchet, we have push press, back squat, and snatch. And those are going to follow sort of a very similar. You've got the volume for the push press. You've got the speed for the back squat, and you have technique work when it comes to the snatch, because we will be finding your 1 rep max snatch on hatchet and masters and teens in phase 3. So we work through all of those things, and your ability to personalize the program beyond that on MFT, we've got front rack lunges, switching over from the back rack to the front rack. Still going to be 6 rounds of 10 with 2 minutes of walking in between. Get that midline a little bit more involved. Hopefully I've been working on your mobility there. We have non-mandatory strongman work. So if you struggle with the sandbag, with the farmer's carries, with sleds and yokes and things of that nature, we've got that built in for you there. And last but not least, we have some heavy and volume hang power cleaning to be able to sort of keep you within the mode of going through the clean. Hatchet, lunge, deadlift, split jerk, and hang power snatch. And again, those are non-mandatory. So all the way back to the beginning of the podcast, if you need to work on those, they're in there for you. That would be your extra piece for the day, and gives you an ability, again, to personalize and sort of do the program the way that you want to. Boom. Time. Call it.
Very nice.
What you got?
You guys got nothing? I just nailed it.
You
Bro,
crushed it.
Fuck.
Yeah, I crushed it.
Come copy
I
me,
did not
Hunter.
mention the in WOD overhead squatting. We'll be doing a heavy overhead squat workout every single week. I shouldn't say heavy, but essentially the overhead squat itself has a little bit of overreaching in it. Probably the biggest difference that you'll notice with these overhead squat workouts from the other in-WOD lifting phases is sometimes it's percentage based. The overhead squat is going to be a little bit different, doesn't really rely on percentages as well. So we're going to do what we would consider either heavy for the sport or a rep scheme at a certain weight that would be a bit of overreaching there. And on the weeks where we have it, super heavy, it's going to have a do not exceed number when it comes to your percentage work. But we are working on the heavy overhead squat every single week within an interval.
It's a sport-specific movement too. There are plenty of times in the past, times in the past where an athlete has been told to do a fucking 20-minute AMRAP that's shoulder death, and then, all right, what's your 3 rep max overhead squat right after it? So, that's immediately where my mind goes with something like this is, are you able to call upon the strength and move beautifully, even though you might have just got off the Echo bike or box jumps? And what does that look like? And, you might learn something about yourself. Like, I need this much time after this movement, or I need to go at this pace in this movement to be able to do that much weight afterwards. So a lot of things that can, again, be taken from these workouts that's more than just, I was able to do it and here was my time.
I will throw it out there. You can clean and jerk an overhead squat. That is forgotten by a lot of athletes. And obviously a skill that you need to get good at. Probably need to do a wide grip clean. But I'm seeing 3 overhead squats at 245, bars taken from the floor in one of these MFT workouts. And when you have done the amount of burpee get-overs that Hunter, I don't know, he chose violence. When you have to do those, would you rather go power clean 245 or squat snatch 245? I think there's probably a little bit of difference there for athletes. So don't forget
I'm
to
gonna
have
think about
that
it, but I'll get back
as a
to you
skill.
on what I would do. I'll think about it.
When?
A little
What
bit,
would
but-
you do, Hunter?
Well, considering I've snatched 245 a single time in my life, I'm pretty confident it's a squat clean, split jerk, and don't die.
Bro, fucking grab
Do we
it
have
and
video
go.
evidence of you snatching 245?
I think I have it on my
I do
phone.
actually.
Oh, fuck. It's
Suck
not
it, man.
It happened.
255. That's all I'll say.
All those tempo snatches paying off.
Last but not least, I don't know how many times I've said that on this podcast is
last but not least.
we bias a machine. Running would be considered a machine in this context, aerobically and anaerobically for our monostructural work. We have anaerobic C2 bike. So if you just got done all of those sessions, all of those MF2 sessions, and all of those aerobic C2 bike sessions, there's a pretty good chance that mixed with all of the other fitness that you did, that you are clearing waste at a much higher rate. And dun, the C2 bike cube test is here. I did a C2 bike cube test in class. It was on the Team Misfit affiliate. And while one of the other coaches asked if I don't even know what he said. Did you die or did you shut the bike off or did you try when he saw my score?
Damn, that's rude.
Effort-wise, one of the
was
best
Sherb.
efforts
Sherb
I've
was the
ever
coach.
put in. Hunter saw my heart rate a few times. I think he can attest to the effort that I put in. So
Charge of the EK.
It wasn't low.
The fucking AD.
the score
Yeah.
was so. The score was 29 or 28 cals off of my all-time high, but dad mode calorie deficit, I'll take that shit all day, especially when it comes to the effort itself. So what that means is you will do the cube test, and then every other week you will have a mandatory, real spicy C2 bike interval. And we are heading into phase 3 is obviously follows phase 2. So that means we are going aerobic bias on the rower. So you're going to log that time doing the MF2. You're going to log the time doing your 10 and 15 minute intervals. And then we will go hard on the rower in phase 3 to get everybody ready for qualifier season. So those are your biases when it comes to the machines. There is either mandatory or non-mandatory work when it comes to this category every single day, and it rotates through. And while we do bias things, I'm a very firm believer in not having that be every single week. I think there's something special about the adaptation that takes place through variance, your ability to, there are some machines obviously that are harder on your legs or your arms or your trunk, and your ability to flush waste and pace and all of those things, I think is like really, really important, as opposed to overdoing it and having an athlete do the same type of session every single week over and over.
Yeah.
You guys just want me to do this by myself now or what?
I mean, I don't know what
Your
I
eyes
don't know
closed? Are you in the dark? What's going on?
He's
You
meditating.
guys should have like a
kidding.
knock system, office to office, to see who's going to talk next.
what- Yeah,
You hear it?
It's your turn, Sherb. Yeah, I can hear it.
No, you can't hear
Sherb,
it.
you have, as Mr.
What else-
Machine, you
what
got
else
any
we
words of
got?
wisdom, Sherb?
Man, the cube test, just like off the bat, that's exactly the same test I did on the, I was talking to Coach Mark here, talking a bunch of junk because he said one of my efforts on a interval piece recently on a C2 bike was pretty pathetic. So he was talking a bunch of junk.
was.
So it was.
For
It was
you.
terrible. It wasn't good.
I could
So-
never do it, so it's weird to say, but
So, little ego shot there. So I decided to do the cube test recently in the affiliate class, and I did the, the cube test on the C2 bike. And it was off my best by, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 calories. But that's one of those things that's really important to understand in the cube test is that you should not get faster or get more calories in later rounds. And if you do have that happen to you, you've made an approach error. Now, you obviously can't go guns blazing into the cube test and try to rip off 120 calories in the first 4 minutes, because you'll probably get 120 calories the remaining 3 intervals. But the idea here would be you want to go into these tests with the approach of the phase. And in this instance, that's going to be putting yourself in a little bit of a deficit with how you're breathing. So I think Hunter had a really great way of describing this to the affiliate class. And it's a good way to kind of understand this if you're a little bit, out of the loop when it comes to athlete IQ. If you're doing the cube test and you're in round 1 and you're 60 seconds in, you're like, oh, fuck, I'm in danger. You're probably going too hard. But if you get 2 minutes in and it feels too sustainable, you are probably going too easy. So it's important that in these tests that 4 minutes may not seem like a long interval in the grand scheme of things, but you have to stay checked in the entire time, because even a momentary lapse, 10, 15 seconds of dropping your pace by, 100 calories, 150 calories an hour is a huge mistake that can be made in something like this. And it's really important that when you go in to do this test, that you spend the extra time getting very, very warm and making sure your body is ready to clear the waste that the cube test is absolutely going to put into your legs during your effort. So, my word of advice on the cube test is get very, very warm ahead of time. Try maybe an effort or two at your intended goal pace for 30 to 60 seconds. Allow your heart rate to come back down. If you want to sit there and flush your legs a bit, that's great. And then really try to work to have a gentle decline in the amount of calories from round to round, as opposed to an uptick where you're getting more and more round after round.
I think that's a good segue for me to my final thoughts, something that I picked up on that Hunter said, and I think translates perfectly to the cube test specifically, and just kind of this test retest model. Hunter talked about the idea of the athlete at the highest level understanding how bad something is going to hurt, which sort of gives them a bit more of an opportunity to go in and ask the most of themselves. When we underestimate a challenge that we've accepted, there's a really good chance that you're going to end up quitting. There's something really magical about knowing how hard a really particularly nasty challenge is going to be. And that could be across all kinds of different, walks of life. It doesn't necessarily just have to be when it comes to fitness. But when we know, when you know your enemy like that, I think that's the only reason that I was able to give, for me, what was somewhere between a 9 and a 10 effort. Like, my body was completely shutting down, and I sort of knew that I was going to be able to continue to do this, even though if that was the first time that I did it, I probably 2-3 minutes into round 2 would have been like, I'm fucked. I'm absolutely fucked. But I know what it feels like. I know that I can sustain a higher heart rate for a little bit longer. And I really just think that my athlete IQ there, and having the ability to say, like, this is about to get, that's the most I've hurt in a workout in a very long time. And just knowing that that's coming and accepting it before you go is a really powerful tool, as opposed to, I am going to accept this challenge, but I really just thought that it was going to be, instead of a 6 out of 10, it's going to be a 7 out of 10 when it comes to pain. And if you do the cube test right, it is intentionally meant to be kind of the highest form of output that we can ask from you when it comes to, 4 rounds, 4 minutes on, 4 minutes off. Like, 16 minutes at that intensity is a lot, but we give you the ability to be able to do it with those 12 minutes of rest mixed in there.
You also get the opportunity to learn a bit about your own machinery in terms of what your output is during those 4 minute windows, but also have you been doing your homework? Have you been deciding to, skip an MF2 session here and there, and all of a sudden you find yourself unable to recover for round 2, 3, and 4, or maybe you're good for 2 rounds but not for 3 and 4, or maybe you're good for 3 out of 4. This is one of those bits of information you can learn from here, because if you have a properly functioning, machinery when it comes to that zone 2 type of stuff in MF2, if you've been working really hard there and not paying attention to so much your pace but better your heart rate, you have a better opportunity to recharge and refresh to give a similar effort. Because for a CrossFitter, 4 minutes is a pretty decent rest interval, even though you're going at a very high, work output during the working time. there's a lot to be learned there. So, if you find yourself struggling to repeat efforts in rounds 2, 3, and 4 of your cube test, maybe give a little bit more nod to doing more MF2 sessions, or, when you get one of those opportunities to be down in like first gear for extended periods of time, that you really try to dial in that deliberate pace and cadence so that you are developing that machinery instead of just going hard every single time.
I think if I was to do that test and then try to get better at it, I would create the most adaptation because of my energy systems in MF2 and get my athlete IQ better in the actual build pieces where I'm at my gears. Like, you would think that going in and having that super high intensity in those build pieces would be the reason I would get better at it. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think they give me context for how challenging certain things are, what my paces could actually be. And then the MF2 would be the thing that really moved the needle for me, again, because I'm not so great with the aerobic stuff.
Final thoughts for me is we went from a phase in phase 1 with the muscular overload stimulus where in a lot of ways that you as the athlete have kind of an excuse to have to stop moving, right? So like your muscle up capacity is only so good. If I can do 20 unbroken muscle ups and your max set of muscle ups is 12, there's obviously a disparity there where like you have a reason to stop moving in a workout due to localized muscular failure. When we go into phase 2 with the more metabolic demand, it's a much grayer area of where you get to, 1, slow down, and 2, maybe more importantly, feel bad for yourself. It's also the point at which the gas tank sort of stimulus and workouts is a lot for a lot of athletes, especially in that kind of mid-level competitive range. Those are the workouts that when they get dropped in the open quarterfinals, wherever, are the ones that wreak the most havoc on athletes because they simply don't know how to attack the workout, or you attack the workout in a way that is not commensurate with your fitness level. So when we have this, while we have this phase that biases that, where you can practice that gas tank stimulus every day, I would say the biggest thing that you should try to pay attention to is how you're feeling, because it's, again, you don't have the heads up display of a rower monitor right in front of you, nor do you have the kind of, I don't want to say excuse of, well, I can't do this movement anymore because my arms simply don't work. I'm not physically capable of doing this movement. In the middle there is that gas tank stimulus where it's like, well, I can keep going, but I really don't want to because it's uncomfortable. I'm not sure what the pace I'm supposed to be holding right now is, but I can pay attention to how I'm feeling, or, after the workout, make that assessment on your own, kind of reflecting how hard was I going? Was it too hard? Was it too slow? Was I pushing in the wrong place? This phase gives you the opportunity to really get an understanding of how hard you should be going based on how you are feeling internally, not so much whereas you're just physically limited by, say, your localized muscular capacity of a very specific movement. So the piece of advice going into this phase is be willing to pay attention to how you're feeling throughout the workout so that you can make a post-workout kind of assessment log, whatever it is for you, and then attack future pieces accordingly.
That
phase
didn't count,
2.
Shrub. You're still up.
Yeah, that didn't count. What the hell? You don't decide what counts and doesn't count. I said phase 2. Don't forget your inhaler. It's the gas tank stimulus. Get yourself ready. Don't forget your inhaler.
Your inhaler.
I mean,
Drop a little main
where
action
are
in
you?
there.
Inhaler. Inhaler. Help you breathe better. Holla. I think what's really stand out to me in the phase is the totem bar thing that Hunter brought up earlier. I think what you described is
Don't
really
project
important.
onto them.
Is really important to understand that it's gonna happen to you at some point in your CrossFit career, at some level where you get this ridiculous turd thrown in front of you and you have to figure out how to deal with it. And I think not only do you need to know your sets, but you need to know your rest. So, one of the things I want athletes to try to focus on during the phase is paying attention to how long you rest, because it's a lot longer than you probably think it is. And I think for many athletes, they're like, oh, I rested 3 seconds. And if you were to watch the tape back, it's 12, 15, 20 seconds. And fortunately, those seconds matter in our sport. So, as important it is to know how you're feeling and that the fact you're going within with the right approach, pay close attention to the clock during your rest intervals, whether that's in between sets of a movement or deliberate rest as prescribed here and how you're feeling, because it's a lost art, I think, when it comes to the sport. There are very few performers who are like, they have this internal clock mechanism that allows them to stay moving at the same cadence the entire time, thinking like the Kenzies of the world. And it's a skill that needs to be practiced like anything else. So, if you've never done it before, phase 2 is an awesome opportunity for you to do that, because again, we're trying to get you stuck in your tracks with your heart rate. So when that does happen and you have to, come take the foot off the gas a bit, pay attention. Don't just zone out and be like, oh, fuck, I feel terrible. Use that time and information to help figure out what is the best strategy for moving forward, and can you be deliberate with how long you rest between things.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Misfit Podcast, and thank you to our show sponsors, properfuel.co. Use the code word Misfit, sharpentheaxeco.com. Use your favorite athlete code. You save 10%. You help them on their journey through the competitive CrossFit season this year. And phase 2, misfitathletics.com, 2-week free trial, Monday, November 6th. And if you're looking for affiliate programming, teammisfit.com. All right, see you next week.